Today, I have the true honor and distinct privilege of introducing the 2012-2013 Senior Warden of the Vestry. Yet when I think of today's speaker, the first image that comes to mind is not of the Herculean figure that is currently seated to my right. Instead, I think of the 5'4", Justin Bieber-haired, backup right fielder for the 2009-2010 JV baseball squad. During practices, we would both jog out to the outfield to track down fly balls, hit off the golden bat of Coach Matt Memo. To be honest, as freshmen, we hadn't yet quite honed in our athletic abilities. Yet it was here, in the outfield, where Connor first stuck out to me. While the rest of the outfield crew bantered about God knows what, Connor displayed a fierce focus and shining intensity. Flash forward through a 500 JV season, 2 hard years of schoolwork, and a vestry election, and Connor and I are again united on the playing field. Yet this playing field is much different, and our task much loftier. With this year coming to an end, many students are focused on exams, many are focused on not focusing on exams, and most are just visioning the beckoning summer days. Yet Connor is different. Connor will be focused on getting stuff done. He is a doer. If you've ever met Connor, this fact is blatant. Connor is also a born leader. To be honest, he's been the de facto vestry warden since the first day he got elected. About a week ago, Connor messaged me on Facebook to talk about the upcoming chapel year. He said something that really resonated with me, and I believe is a testament to his dedication and love not only for vestry, but for life. He said, "Man, how sweet would it be if we really gave life to the chapel program next year? You know, to really give everyone something to really look forward to every other day." This is Connor. So today, much has changed, and much is say the same about Connor. He no longer sports the Swifty hair or the 5'4" frame, but he still maintains the focus and intensity that allows him to be a true leader. It will be my honor and privilege to serve under him next year on the vestry. In closing, I guess all I have to say is, atta Boyle. Please stand to greet the Senior Warden of the Vestry, Connor Boyle.
Thank you, Dan. That was excellent. Please be seated. Good morning. I thought that I would begin today's address with a story. But before I do that, I'm curious as to who here saw Evan Waddles speak in chapel last year. Show of hands. Most of you, right? And for those of you who did not hear his speech, it was a check-in on his life after recovering from a vicious drug addiction. And that speech was actually Evan's second address to the Episcopal community. He gave a talk to the combined upper and middle schools in January of 2008, more than 4 years ago. For me, I was in the winter of my 7th grade year, and I was running late to chapel that day. And I knew it was combined, which, of course, as you all know, it meant someone important or well-known. And when I finally arrived, my section was already full. So I had to stand near the teachers against the wall. And Evan's father, Mr. Waddles, who still teaches in the middle school, he started to deliver the introduction as I settled in. Now, although it's a lot more subtle today, upper school students used to endure lectures about drug abuse very frequently. So when Mr. Waddles mentioned the phrase peer pressure, it's safe to assume that a lot of the students considered tuning out. But thankfully, ever-eloquent Mr. Waddles commanded attention. He was solemn but very approachable. And like most memorable speeches, that introduction was absolutely excellent. Evan opened with some wit and some self-reflection and then settled into his story. Now, Evan's story is more than worth hearing, but I'm not going to summarize it for you today. If you ever have a spare couple of minutes, I can guarantee you would enjoy reading it, and I can also promise that it will really make you think. Evan finished his speech to thunderous applause and a standing ovation, and I got the chance to speak to him a little last year after his speech. And I'll tell you what I told him. Your speech in 2008, it resonated with me. I've never forgotten it, and I do not think that I ever will. So what's important to note here is that the students that day in January, they didn't tune out. And I talked to peers today who remember that as their favorite chapel speech ever. Evan told his story, and no doubt influenced the thoughts and decisions of many of the kids in that chapel. I am a firm believer that an education from this school instills a responsibility to better yourself as a person. And there's no better way to do that than by internalizing the message of an Evan Waddles. We are an Episcopalian school, and this is a modified Episcopalian service. But what's special about this service is that you don't need to be Episcopalian to benefit from it. Some of you, a lot of you, may not have strong religious convictions at all, but to tune out and get through a service is probably a self-detriment. You're cheating yourself. It took me a while in middle school to realize that the majority of the speakers that they bring in are for the benefit of us, the students. And Evan's speech proved something to me, that these chapel services, they are what you make of them. You can choose to internalize the message that is highlighted by the speaker. You can think about a theme or a call to action that is granted, it's sometimes pushed at you, or you can disagree with it, but you shouldn't ignore it. I challenge myself to take something from these services. And not all of them are going to be powerful and life-altering, but every once in a while, you're going to find a gem. Our chapel service demands more than just attendance to get something out of it. And many of you realize that. Many of you realize that just coming in and listening to a speaker and walking out is not enough. And nothing comes without work. In reality, chapel is no exception to that. It's incredibly rewarding to internalize a speech and put it in the context of your own life. And if you do that, the experience, it may be life-changing. And at the very least, it's going to make you a more informed person. I'd like to read a modified excerpt, with permission, from Evan Waddles' speech in 2008. When I was in high school, which was only 2 years ago, having an assembly was synonymous with having a free period, or a slightly uncomfortable nap. We'd all sit down and listen to some toothless biker with skull tattoos and crazy eyes tell us of the dangers of drinking and driving, or how drugs will ruin your life. And the most that I ever got out of those was a few cheap laughs and a newfound appreciation for my proper oral hygiene. I could not relate to a guy that was twice my age who called pot dope and dropped out of school at the age of 12. This toothless, wrinkly gentleman limping across the stage and I had nothing in common. I was a good student. I got good grades, good SAT scores, had a great family, good friends, and a nice house in a nice suburb of a nice city. But you and I, we can relate. And that's why I find it easier to believe that my story can help to educate and offer hope to anyone in this audience. I quote Bob Dylan, who said, "Everybody must give something back for something they get. And that's why I'm here today." End quote. And in a way, that's also why I'm here today. I couldn't tell you the impact that chapel has had on me as a person because I myself will really never be sure. I attended church infrequently before I came to this school, and the chapel program was always a question mark. It's every other day of school. This school has provided me with countless opportunities, and this school has made me a better person. And the one thing I always liked about the chapel is that when you walk in, everything else fades into the background. It's not a classroom or a theater, it's a space that's on a different level. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For now we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now, we see only a reflection as in a mirror. But then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. This is our last regular service chapel of the year, and I cannot express what an honor it is to be able to address you right now. This program is incredibly important to me, and I would be remiss not to mention the extraordinary work done by Colin, Carly, Josh, and Wheezy, our outgoing seniors. The whole vestry this past year has worked hard to better the chapel program, and I cannot commend them enough. Moving forward, the vestry is going to try to solidify the chapel as a place where enrichment is accessible. It should be a fun ride, and I am very excited to have the opportunity to lead our charge. Thank you, and have a great day.